How much do neo-Nazi views influence Germany's AfD?
The far right is getting stronger in Germany, and the far right party, AfD, is becoming more and more radical. Germany's domestic intelligence service has warned.
Und wenn wir dereinst die
Yep, sounds like Hitler. This is the guy who tried to do the coup in Germany. Yeah, this dude is so funny, dude. Holy sh! The 2022 German coup d'etat plot. Yeah, the Reichsbürger movement. Yes, the Reichsbürger. Around 5,000 police officers, 1,500 search, 130 made several arrests. They like real crackdown on this guy. Very, very funny.
With their anti-refugee, anti-LGBTQ and anti-government politics, the Alternative for Germany party is at an all-time high in the opinion polls. The AfD accuses its political opponents.
Remember, when the Nazis take over Germany again, it's liberals' fault. Okay, this happened before and it's happening again. It's the exact same fucking problem. A set of material conditions laying like fertile ground for a fascist uprising, and liberals doing literally fucking nothing to deal with it. Like this, the exact same like milquetoast, institutionalist, austerity, neoliberal bullshit, like paving the way for fascist uprising. The same thing's happening in France right now, you know, with Le Pen getting more popular with every successive election, and like no one fucking likes Macron.
The AfD could even become the strongest political party in much of Eastern Germany. Regional elections in several German states are set for 2024, and the AfD is leading polls. The other parties, as well as experts on right-wing politics, are sounding the alarm about the AfD's rise. Some have even termed it a neo-Nazi party. How much truth is...
Some, including people in the AfD, because they've been found out to be Nazis, and also investigators who have constantly tied the AfD to Nazis, like in many, many ways.
There to the accusation that the AfD is not just a right-wing extremist party, but crosses the line into neo-Nazism. In Germany, the term Nazi is taken extremely seriously. The Nazis under Adolf Hitler were responsible...
So seriously that the AfD has been allowed to become the second most popular party in Germany, you know? They're taking it very, very seriously. Yeah, the AfD is up to a full fucking quarter of the support as of this recent poll. I will say, in fairness, that like another big issue here, like I love blaming liberals, but I'll blame leftists too, my other favorite group to blame. Like Die Linke is fucking pathetic. Like the leftist I know that for a long time leftist efforts in Germany were effectively squashed because they were under occupation from both the West and the Soviet Union, two fascist or fascist-aligned groups. But like, you know, it's been 30 years since Germany's been given a new shot after reunification, and the left in this country is fucking pathetic. You know, it's not good. Yeah, AfD support is heavily concentrated in East Germany for two main reasons, in my opinion. One, Western Germany hasn't done enough to reinvest in Eastern Germany, and that inequality radicalizes them. And two, the Soviet Union actively crushed any effort at developing an independent civil society, which means that people in East Germany are more likely to be, I guess, subservient to authoritarianism. The development of a civil society and a love of like autonomy and freedom are things that you have to cultivate. They're like a social project, you know? You can't take a group of people who have been living under authoritarians for their entire lives and then like, oh, you're in a democracy now. Also, the wealthier part of the democracy doesn't want to fund you, haha, and expect good outcomes.
Former Bundestag member Siegbert Jose has also come under suspicion. In his election campaign for the AfD, he used a vehicle with a custom license plate, LAH 1818. The L stands for the city of Leipzig, and AH and the number 18 are well-known codes referring among neo-Nazis. AH stands for Adolf Hitler. 1 and 8 stand for the first and 8th letters of the alphabet, A and H. So the license plate presents a coded version of Adolf Hitler.
I think it's a coincidence that this person who is obviously a Nazi and everything he's ever done and said is Nazi shit also has a custom license plate that just happens to be the Nazi license plate.
3 times. Jose has also visited the Wolf's Lair, one of Adolf Hitler's headquarters during World War II. He's confirmed the authenticity of this photo. Here, Jose can be seen posing with his hand on his heart in front of Hitler's bunker.
Like, can somebody explain to me, like, what is the point of Germany having anti-Nazi laws if people can do shit like this and not be immediately arrested for life? Like, you guys will burn somebody's house down for fucking like posting a swastika on Twitter or whatever, but then your literal elected officials are out here fucking Sieg Heiling at like historical Nazi sites with fucking Adolf Hitler license plates, and it's like, well, you know, we'll need 17 more investigations. I know why, by the way. It's because German police are all Nazis. Thank you for the link earlier. German police and German special forces are fucking full of Nazi militias that are all out in the woods training, waiting for their day to take back control. Yeah, I remember this. Germany disbands special forces group tainted by far-right extremists. For years, far-right extremists were tolerated inside Germany's most elite military unit. An underground bunker of explosives has woken the authorities to an alarming problem. Pay no mind, German citizen. The SPD and liberalism are doing wonderfully in Germany. Meanwhile, your special forces are filling, like, fucking prepper bunkers full of C4 for their uprising, you know? Meanwhile, your government does nothing about it. Pardon me for my, like, you know, naivete and ineptitude here, but I think if it turns out that your special force squads are, like, illicitly hiding explosives, they should all be arrested. Like, every single one of them. They should all be put deep underground. Like, they're bunkers. Like, you know, like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, you can just do that? What the fuck? And like, America is supposed to be the land of freedom, pro-gun, blah-de-blah. And if America, like, if the cops catch you with, like, fucking 500 pounds of explosives cooked up in your basement or whatever, like, they don't let that fly, you know? The Bundeswehr has had Nazi problems from the very beginning already, because when they built the armor, they relied on former Wehrmacht officers. Yep. That's why it's, you know, you have to learn the lessons from Reconstruction, total liquidation of the previous regime. There's no reforming like a former Nazi commando leader or whatever, you know, fuck that.
There is plenty of evidence showing connections between AfD politicians and the language or ideology of the Nazis. The AfD itself has confirmed many.
One of the most grim sort of realizations I ever had when it came to denazification of Germany, you know that narrative about like when the Nazis fell in the war-torn streets of Berlin, German citizens were like led to see screenings of the Holocaust atrocities, like they would hold them at like theaters and show like photos of the mass graves and stuff, and there would be like Germans who broke out into tears. All of that, by the way, that narrative, it's bullshit. In reality, polling shows that Germans remained sympathetic to the Nazis well after the Nazis lost. That a lot of them just sort of grumblingly were like, all right, there, we lost, and continued to believe that Jews were like subhuman, or like the Aryans were the master race or whatever. And what actually led to the ideological shift in Germany, in West Germany, was not like the changed minds of the population, but was rather the children, because the children of that generation grew up on more broad Western media, which was, of course, very, like, liberal and democratic, and then they, like, grew up and they learned what their parents had supported and freaked out. And there was a big, like, generational schism from people who were never exposed to Nazi propaganda realizing what their parents were. And it actually led to, like, it was like a massive cultural backlash, yeah. It's very, very much like an anti-rehabilitation point that, like, the citizens of Germany never had this big, like, collective realization of the monstrosity that they had, you know, aided and abetted, rather that a lot of them just kind of, like, dealt with the fact that they lost, you know? Which is the same thing that happened with the Confederates. In the mid-1950s, nearly half of all Germans polled yes to the proposition that, quote, were it not for the war, Hitler would have been one of the greatest statesmen of the 20th century. Yeah, exactly. Even afterwards, like, the whole narrative is kind of wrong. In the mid-50s, nearly half all Germans polled said yes to the proposition that were it not for the war, Hitler would have been one of the greatest statesmen of the 20th century. Until the late 50s, nearly 90% gave an answer other than yes when asked if their country should recognize the Oder-Neisse line, the new border with Poland. Until the late 1950s, only 10% of polled Germans believed they should recognize anything other than the new border with Poland. Perhaps most revealing of all was their stance on Jews. In the 12th of June, 1946, Hannah Arendt hazarded the opinion to Dolf Sternberger, one of the occupied Germany's most prominent publicists, that, quote, Germany has never been more anti-Semitic than it is now. As late as 1959, 90% of Germans polled thought of Jews belonging to a different race, while only 10% thought of the English in these terms. Jesus, right? Really makes you sympathetic to, like, the methods that the Chinese have used for cultural assimilation. With stuff like this, you know, it really makes you wonder, on a mass level, is rehabilitation even possible? Like, what can you do? And, like, at what point do you have to, like, throw your arms up in the air and go, nope, cultural liquidation. We're literally just, like, Like, the borders of Germany are now the borders of its own concentration camp, and we are going to de-Germanify the population until you all, like, 2 generations from now, become normal, you know? I don't really know. It's kind of like the Confederates to an extent. Like, nothing fucking changed. Nothing ever changes. I'm very interested, I think, in, like, the sociology behind mass, like, country-level de-radicalization. What does it take to make an entire country not Hitler, right? Like, because we failed with the Confederates. Even over a century later, it is a common belief in the South of America, south of the Mason-Dixon line, that the Confederacy was fighting over states' rights. The North started the Civil War of Northern Aggression, blah, blah. You'll see Confederate flags all over the place. In Japan, like, up until Shinzo Abe got a goofy haha funnied, Shinzo Abe literally part of a cult that, like, to an extent denied Japanese war crimes, highly nationalist, highly ethno-nationalist, and the Japanese population, while not that far gone, like, on average, isn't exactly great when it comes to race issues, Like, Western Germany, like, they maintained, like, Nazi ideology for decades after the Nazis lost, and to this day, it looks like Germany might fall again, or at the very least be threatened substantially, because Nazis are, like, growing like mold in the attic, It's like, Jesus, how do you fix a civilization on, like, ideological level? I have no idea. No idea at all. Even QAnon is becoming big in Germany now. Well, conspiracism and far-right politics are very multicultural, globalization. So education, yeah, but, like, a lot of the people are adults. What, are you going to force them all into school? Because if you start going down that road, you're doing the Uyghur Muslim genocide shit, where you force them all into camps and, like, try to re-educate them. Which, I mean, if that's going to be done, better it be done to Nazis than to people just because they're Uyghur Muslim, I mean, if you're going to take that approach, I'm saying there's better targets than Uyghur Muslims. If ever you're going to do a forced mass re-education to make people not fucking Nazis, I mean, what else can you do? Otherwise, these fuckers are just going to ruin the world again the nanosecond they get the chance. You give them, like, we de-armed Japan, we de-armed Germany, and I guess that was the right move. Who knows how things could have gone otherwise? Kind of a bad take. Well, not as bad as the take that I'm about to deliver to you and your generations forthwith. If you don't explain what you mean. What the question here is about, how do you do these big shifts? No, but focus on the children. That's the thing. Western Germany, past the 1980s and such, was considered to be a bulwark of liberal democratic values. And right now, the Nazis there are as popular as they've ever been since the fall of the Nazis. So what do you actually do? It's not enough to just get, like, raise the kids up well, because the fascist ones, the ones who don't get pulled over, are the ones who end up finding jobs in the security forces, the ones who are most motivated to go, like, this is an indictment, if nothing else, of liberal complacency. Fascists will breathe and die to attain power, but liberals, because they're just naturally inept, they're ideologically deferential to institutions. Oh, the system, it'll sort itself out. They don't have that fire in their blood. So, 10 liberals aren't worth 1 fascist in terms of, like, energy to power. The Nazis were not the majority of the population when they took power. If every liberal in Weimar Germany had been just as militant as the Nazis were back then, the Nazis would have been, realistically, the Nazis, their leadership, would have been killed very early on, if they were anywhere near as militant. From the genesis of their movement, they would have been cut down. But liberals just aren't that active, Fascists are the most energized of the political groups, so you have to, you have to be active. Maybe we need to radicalize liberals against fascists. That would be nice. The bigger question is, where do we draw the line of what qualifies as cultural liquidation? I mean, fuck, I don't give a shit about any element of German culture. It's just the Nazi shit. Like, literally, it's not even cultural liquidation, really. It's just, like, to what extent are you willing to make Nazism the fucking hill you die on? Literally, Vaush, there are almost no Confederate flags flying today in Arkansas as there once were. You can still see them, but in towns 2 hours off the interstate, like Frogtown or Toadsuck. Political Confederatism is dead in the next 10 years. Yeah, because it's changed forms, not because it's actually dead. You realize that right now the highest polling presidential candidate for this year's election is the guy who initially ran on building a gigantic wall so brown people couldn't enter the country. Like, the politics of the Confederacy are fine and dandy, you know? The actual iconography of the Confederacy might change, much in the same way that the AFD doesn't typically run around with swastika armbands, but the underlying political thought has remained very prominent in American politics. You know? Like, George W. Bush didn't have to have a Confederate flag in the White House to be like a continuation of that ideology. Reagan didn't, you know? Trump doesn't, or didn't. I just think it's relevant. I think you're dooming about people not changing. I don't think that people don't change, and I don't think that cultural movements don't change. I think that evil ideologies are very good at living like mold in a basement until the humidity rises and they take advantage and they rise up again. Because the people who want to do that are more energized to change the world than you are. You're in a live streamer's chat right now. What are you doing, right? All of you are. What are the fascists in German security forces doing? Those people are lunatics. You realize that, right? They're fucking lunatics. They have spent their entire life prepping and training to kill, or at least to seize power in the, to sort of wrest political interest from minorities, Muslims, Jews, whatever else. Like, they are insane. Right? That's the problem. You know, it doesn't take that many of them. Much in the same way that, like, it only takes a couple of far-right billionaires to, like, for decades skew the political direction of a country. This is stuff you have to be concerned with. And if the idea, if like, is this something you want to keep happening forever and ever? You want like the AFD to have their big resurgence, it goes fucking crazy, they die down for a bit, you know, and then we deal with it again in 70 years? Like, no, there has to be some kind of, I don't want to subscribe to that kind of like doomer, like cyclical, there's no way out bullshit, you know? So the problem is that leftists and liberals love life and fascists want to die for their mission. Whoa, I didn't impugn leftists here. Leftist movements historically, to the extent that they exist, have been pretty militant. But yeah, fascists tend to be more militant. That's not really like a surprise, or like it's not like really like a radical take. What's your take on the outlawing of the party? The AFD should be illegal. It is literally illegal under German law. The German lawmakers are fucking twiddling their thumbs about it because they don't want to deal with the political backlash. Make it illegal, do a crackdown, arrest everyone who dissents. That's the law. It's unambiguous. That's how it works. Sorry, if you break the law, if the party is illegal, then you break the party. That's it. You can't fuck around with this shit. You can't. This isn't some like tenuous free speech issue about whether or not like there's an artistic defiance of some authoritarian trend. They're Nazis and they want to kill you. Okay, this is a situation where a great deal of sort of liberal judgment is warranted. You know? Yeah, I'm a big believer in law and order. Thank you. You're asking for the spark that'll probably activate the AFD. They always say that. Don't buy that bullshit. They always say that. All throughout Gamergate and the alt-right online, they were always saying, yeah, bro, ban me. By deplatforming me, you'll only make me more powerful. And then every person who got deplatformed ended up like becoming less relevant every single time with no exceptions, you know? Don't buy that bullshit for them. I will admit at this point, they've let the AFD fester for way too long. They should have gone after the AFD a decade ago. Admittedly, at this point, it's possible they fucked up like enough that there's no way of dealing with the situation without like massive political backlash. But yeah, like, yeah, that's their fault, you know? Liberal abstemiousness, malicious abstemiousness. Yeah, the genie's kind of out of the bottle there as well. They deplatformed Hitler at the beginning and it worked. No, they didn't. That's not a deplatforming. He broke the law and was arrested. And then years and years and years later, he worked his way up to being like the representative of the far-right populist wing that ended up working with the conservatives to have him be appointed as that's not, he did, him being arrested after the beer hall putsch did not like propel him to power. He was not canceled. He broke the law, he was arrested. Are you implying when fascists break the law, they shouldn't be arrested? Because that is what you're stating, like unambiguously. You're saying, okay, so if a fascist breaks the law, you know, they shouldn't be punished for it because that could like make them stronger or whatever. Well, fuck, I guess they're just God then. What do you do then? You know, ridiculous. No. He's wrong. Hitler used his trial and imprisonment to further his message. Yeah, and do you think there was like anything the liberal establishment could have done to prevent that? Or moreover, do you think that like he wouldn't have also grown in popularity if he had been allowed to break the law with impunity? Think of that on the other side. Do you think it might have possibly been bad for Hitler to have broken the law publicly with the beer hall putsch, and then for the police to go, oh, we can't arrest him, canceling him would make him stronger, like a Jedi? And then in what world are you suggesting then this is like an improvement of the situation? You know, like then he becomes weak because of this public display of the law backing down in the face of his popularity? No, ridiculous. How do we strike a balance between democracy and this? Taking down fascist parties is pro-democracy. Much in the same way that it's pro-freedom to arrest murderers, you know? But you're taking away the freedom of the murderer. Well, the murderer was doing stuff that imposed on the freedom of others. Much in the same way that Nazis do, except Nazis are infinitely worse than murderers because Nazis both murder and do it on a much larger social scale, you know? Murder is included in the package of Nazi political prescriptions, you know? They're kind of inseparable. Wasn't the judge who prosecuted Hitler super conservative? Yes, the judges, the intelligentsia in Weimar Germany were very sympathetic to the Nazis because they were hyper-nationalists who wanted to return to the days of like glorious German supremacy, aristocracy, Kaiser shit, and felt embittered after World War I. Yeah. Murder isn't the same as a political position, though. Well, if the political position is that you should murder a large number of people, then it kind of is, yeah. Masagui, can you please, like, stop dedicating your presence in chat to a defense of liberals here? Like, liberals have historically been fucking miserably bad at dealing with fascism. Like, liberals fund fascists abroad, ally with fascists when it's convenient to their business interests, and are abstemious and weak when it comes to dealing with them locally. All of these things are objectively true. There's no getting around it, you know. You're, like, defending the honor of liberals. There is none. You know, like, this is the wrong community for that. And like you're like comparing it to the Soviets. I've said the Soviets are fascist multiple times. Like, why are you like what? Like, you're not doing this because you genuinely think I'm defending the Soviets because I've attacked the Soviets so many times. You're doing it because you don't like the criticism of liberals. Your chat messages are full of it.